Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the greenhouse. Tonight, we're just going to jump into this thing that had my dander up earlier. The algorithm doth provide, because I believe this is a British call-in show fielding a call from an Australian gender-critical woman. The gender-critical being in quotes was the red flag that this was going to be interesting, right? It's actually two trans women discussing women's rights with a woman from the other side of the planet. Let's dive in. Oh, it's Katy Montgomery. I have heard of this person. I didn't recognize them. I'm American. I don't have to know who people are.
Twitter. Hi, Sal. Thanks for calling in.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Oh, to be honest, I just woke up. I'm actually still in bed.
Yeah,
relaxed.
Thanks
it's
for...
Sunday morning.
Does that work?
Yeah, it confused me. So just for the audience, me and Sal have interacted publicly a few times. We've had some clashes, and then we've decided to draw a line and reset, and then we've been talking in DM. And I was like, oh, we should call in on Saturday. And then we were trying to find a show when I was going to be on and when she was free. And then she was like, oh, yeah, I'll call in on Sunday. And I was like, Sunday? The show is not on Sunday. I was like, oh, yeah, she's on Australia. So it's going to be a breakfast call. Yeah.
That's funny, right? Because that's so emblematic of just the disconnect, the level of disconnect between these two people and women.
So what would you like to say to the audience? What you would like to would you like to say for the audience what you would like to discuss?
Yeah, I suppose where our differences is, I suppose, is whether we think that there is a concept of trans rights and women's rights. Because, I'm talking about me personally, I have no problem at all with trans people. I support trans people in every which way that I can. But at the same time...
Right, like trans people are human and deserve human rights. Woo! No one is debating that. She supports trans people in every way she can. I cannot say the same for myself. I don't know any anymore because those tolerant, beautiful unicorns don't speak to me anymore.
I also want female-only spaces to exist. And I think that there is room in the world for this, because I think that true diversity and inclusion is giving everybody choices and everybody having places to go. If there are women plus the trans women spaces together, I'm completely supportive of that. If there's trans only spaces, I'm supportive of that. I just want female only spaces to have the same respect, I suppose.
If that isn't fair and equitable, I do not know what is. But they don't want this. Of course, this is not. No. Watch them talk her around it.
Is what I would give every other space.
And flip it inside out.
Just for clarification, when you're saying female-only spaces, in your terminology, for my terminology, that would be cis women-only spaces. So you mean spaces only for people who the doctor was like, it's a girl, and they're now a woman, or still a girl?
Yeah, females. Right? The thing that you're not, the thing that you obviously went to a lot of trouble to appear to become, to present as, right? Because if it doesn't matter, why transition? But we get into that.
And not including trans women and not including trans girls. Is that, that's accurate of what you mean by female spaces? Is that right?
That is correct. However,
because they're boys,
space would include any biologically female yet non-binary female or trans men, if they want, sort of the Buck Angels of the world who do acknowledge that Nick Buck says he is female, and so there is the sort of inclusion in that sense. It's only just if you're female, that's the only thing you have to be able to go into these particular spaces.
Ooh, but that's frightening, isn't it? Number one, because it excludes them. Number two, because golly, that's a lot of women. That's a lot of people. You know, if we actually managed to unite on that front, boy, well, that would just be the end of civilization as we know it, literally, wouldn't it?
There's no other.
That's the conservative nature of these people.
The reason I'm clarifying that is just because I know that often we'll hear this line from gender critical people that say, I want female only spaces. And lots of trans people will be like, well, I want female only spaces. It's just that I think trans women should be in them.
I want female only spaces, but I think males should be allowed in.
Because there is also this other position which might be, I don't want any sex segregated, gender segregated spaces at all, and everything should be gender neutral, and that is a separate position, and that's why I'm just.
And that's not what gender criticism ever is, and that is a red herring.
Went to clarify this, and just because it's a
clarify by throwing in a bunch of random crap. Not so random,
yeah,
you know.
Sorry.
Bunch of non sequiturs.
Recording a video.
I was recording a video. Thanks, random guy.
Question. I'm kind of curious, what spaces do you personally feel, Sal, that you would want to be female only? Is it just you want them to exist, period, or is there a specific kind of space you have in mind?
No, I want them to exist, period. Because,
ooh, right? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? If we could just have some. You know, but no. No. Oh, did it again.
Rape crisis centers, which is sort of a really big one. It has always been female. I'll use cis women. Let's say that, just so that the terminology isn't confused. And which has long been cis women only, and which I am all for that. However, I'm also for there being trans-only spaces. It's not like I'm saying, can't come here, there's no place for you to go. That's not a solution. It's just that there are some scenarios where I think that, sometimes you have to look at it from so many different perspectives.
Please, just have some empathy. Right? The blank looks on these two faces here. Are they even listening? Not sure they look like they're even listening.
And go is it the time and the place? Is there somebody who's wanting to
right? So just have the slightest bit of empathy and consideration for people who aren't you, right? And she's being so obsequious about it. It's kind of sickening. Just the cloying, please, just begging of it. Because she's Australian. These two kookaburras are not her problem. They shouldn't be. She shouldn't feel like they are. Okay? Women, as a theoretical group, have the right to look after our own needs. Just as much as these two who clearly spent plenty of time looking after their own needs.
Discuss or to if there's a woman there who does have a reaction, it's not going to be pleasant for anybody. You know what I mean? It's trying to avoid hurt and harm by going, okay, this probably isn't the long-term solution. Let's find ways that, okay, let's make sure that there are places for trans women to go to. And then also being able to say, hey, we don't have to just have female-only spaces because we've been raped or something horrible has happened, or privacy and safety. There are legitimate reasons. But there's also times where they're actually just really fun and relaxing because you never have that kind of environment in the real world. And I'm sure it's very similar to, say, when you've got a group of trans people who are talking, and you go, and there's like an ease with it. You don't have to explain certain things. You're just like, you feel safe in each other's presence, and there's a relaxation about it. It's very similar to that. And so it's like, I would never deny trans people having their own spaces where they were like, look, we don't want you around here because we don't want to explain shit to you. We don't want to hear your opinion. We like to have a little refuge where we don't have to deal with your shit. I think that's completely fair.
Right. Everyone gets to have their own corner if they want, based on, whatever distinction you want to draw from. Okay, women can have spaces. Different races can have spaces, goodness knows. Men can have spaces, goodness knows. Children can have spaces, right? Maybe. Kind of running low on those. But, different professions have, conventions. Fucking Comic-Con, okay? Whatever angle of intersection you want to draw on for your personal identity. There are spaces devoted to that. At this point, it's basically guaranteed, even if they're only online, right? And so female-bodied people.
So it's just being like, when there are times where there's going to be a female space, it's not.
Did he just almost cut her off?
We hate you, or we don't think you deserve rights. Not at all. It's like, we can
I
have
think they're getting impatient now. They look like
right.
antsy.
You guys, everyone.
I mean, she is repeating
deserves.
herself, to be fair.
That includes just female
Please,
spaces
just give a
it.
fuck.
There's plenty of space in the world for us all to exist, and all of these different spaces to exist.
I think this, you've covered quite a few things there, and I have quite a few problems. I guess that the angle I would come in with for like female-only spaces, or women's spaces, in the sense of like shelters, and even just when we want a situation like changing rooms or bathrooms, the general sort of women's spaces that we interact with on the day to day. I think the reason that we have these isn't because, you did mention how sometimes it's just fun to be around people like you, and perhaps I'll address that separately.
Ooh.
I think the functional use for most of these spaces is to address the prejudice in society.
Wrong. Kind of. But it's such a man thing to say, isn't it? Because personal physical safety, or lack thereof, might be, an outcome of social biases or whatever the fuck he said. But that's really the primary issue. Right? We all know that. And if they were truly women, I feel like they would have a better understanding of these things, don't you?
And it's like the same if you had a trans-only space. It might be a space where you're just finally free of the transphobia that you just face all the time in society. And equally, there's sometimes
I'd be afraid of something that's not there. I don't know.
Get away and be free from the misogyny that you just face all the time in society. But the reason, the issue here is, if you were creating a space for people who are affected by misogyny, away from misogyny, then that would include at least some, but it would include trans women, because they can experience and do experience daily, misogyny too.
So if you pass, you just get a different victim card. Is that it? Well, bully for you, hun. But I'm afraid I don't accept victim cards. You're going to have to come at me with a little more logic than that, because that's not what female-only spaces are. And she literally said, we shouldn't need a reason. Misogyny is not the reason, and I think that feminism is most effective when we do it for our reasons, not as a reaction to patriarchy's bullshit. Right? And a lot of times that really is what it is. And our own needs, our own comfort includes sometimes just not having dudes around. Heaven knows they should appreciate that. They spent plenty of time insisting that they just needed to not have women around so they could think straight.
So when you end up with a space and you're like, this space is for, combating misogyny.
No,
however,
that's not what women's rooms are for.
A small, tiny group of you, less than 1% of you, aren't welcome here because of something else. What, like, for sure, and maybe in our dream world, we would have like a space just for left-handed women, and a space just for bisexual women, and a space just. But in reality, we just have men's and women's spaces.
No, in reality, we do have. I don't know about left-handed people. I am one, so they're not exactly prominent, you would say. Although I hear there's a lot of us in the Screen Actors Guild. But anyway, there's, like I say, online especially, there are left-handed communities. They're not super vibrant because that's not a particularly dynamic element to one's personal, identification, is it? It doesn't mean much to most people other than you're always pulling on the wrong door. So that's not a good example, but like I say, there pretty much are communities for just about everything these days, even if they're only online, which, what? Does the internet not matter?
And sometimes, in when we're talking about toilets, we have like a disabled toilet, which caters for some other needs. But even then, often we just do not have that because practically that's not, so it's not just something that won't happen. If we ended up saying,
what?
Women's spaces aren't going to include trans people, but trans people can have their own spaces, there, practically there just wouldn't be any. But also, what? I think my main...
What? All right, first of all, I know I live in the States, but I live in the sticks, and even here, there are wheelchair ramps basically everywhere. I mean, I don't know about the junkyard, and there are certain people's homes and harder to access places out in the boonies that, like I say, are not easy to get to, even sometimes if you can walk. They are not wheelchair friendly. They are not disabled friendly, but again, they're out in the middle of nowhere, so they're fairly easy to avoid. But everywhere in the city, all the city buildings, the shopping centers, the stores, the sidewalks have, the dips on the end that are nice and wide. We have these facilities. And most of the stuff around here is not what you call brand new. But, of course, the federal government passed that law a while back that anything you built had to be wheelchair accessible, right? They put that in a bill a while back, that it's illegal to discriminate against people based on their disabilities, right? So if you're building infrastructure like sidewalks and government buildings, you have to install ramps. This has been on the books for quite some time. I remember hearing about this years ago. Some pretty far-reaching effects from that years later. I wonder what's going to happen to, the federal legislation now that they've written gender identity into the protections along with everything else. Anyway.
The point here is that if we're making a space to protect people from misogyny,
I think if we all worked together, we would get trans-only space.
When they're this little,
commercials. I'm an American. Why do those people think that I want to be told what to do? Anyways, yeah, if we just all work together, right?
I honestly do think we would.
We have some trans-only spaces we have some today. Sorry, go ahead, Arden.
Or I was just going to say, sure, I think there can be like some like, and kind of going back to this ideal society thing, like there can be ideal societies where there are trans spaces, but also in the society that we currently live in, having spaces that are like segregated specifically for trans people also in a lot of instances poses like a literal threat to like our safety. And I think it's important to consider that.
Why would that be? Because then people know where they are?
But like I also want to express that like I do.
Oh, right, yeah. Puts them in danger. Why? Because people know where they are? What do you think ladies' rooms do? I don't understand.
Hear you, Sal, because like when I go
You want to
like
talk about like being a captive victim group of oh god, come on.
night out with like friends or something, like hasn't happened in forever because fucking COVID, but like that is an awesome feeling. Like being able to know that like everyone there is looking out for each other, like you can wingman for each other, you can make
I'm sure being
no
out
creeps,
as one of the
like,
girls is a great feeling for
crossing
you.
lines or anything like that. That's amazing. But like there's also like just some like technical issues. Like, have you ever had a girls' night out where you're talking about these safe, fun spaces where like a random girl joins you and you're like, hell yeah, like come over, like have drinks with us or something, and like how are you being sure that this person's female? Like,
I don't know. It took me a few minutes to clock these two. Like I say, I didn't recognize Katy Montgomery. And I've seen this person's name around quite a bit, so I know that they're fairly well known. And the dark-haired one with the glasses, whatever their name is, I don't. Arden, I think. Ooh, lovely. Anyways, I don't have a lot of girls' nights out because I'm a nerd. But what kind of sociopath does this? Like you're out as what, like half a dozen women, and then a seventh woman just kind of sidles up to your table and it's like, hey, can I sit with you? I mean, obviously you probably say yeah, but like whatever you were talking about before she came over, the conversation's done, right? And now you're just kind of like, trying to get to know your new bunkmate or whatever. Like, say, what's up with you? What brings you alone and desperate to our table? I don't know. How do you know they're female? Should you have to worry about it?
Like what measures do you have to go to be sure of these things? Because it almost sounds like we're getting into like a we can always tell situation, and like that would be like a whole can of worms.
Well, I think it would also then not just talking about many different things, because like on a girls' night out, and then someone comes up like.
Should we start calling them tequilas instead of Tim's because there's a worm at the bottom?
If a gentleman came up to me on a girls' night out, we were chatting, I would have absolutely no problem with that. I would like, more the merrier, let's dance, would you like a drink? There's no issue. It's when you are going to a space that says this is what it is, and then, or even just like, because there is like,
I disagree, because either way it's a lie, isn't it?
The different security measures for different
same lie,
etc. But for me, it's even just the debate on the outside of it.
It's a question of
so toxic.
Orders of magnitude.
We're just fighting, and we're missing each other's points all the time, and we're getting nowhere. And we want everyone to be safe. We want people to be happy. We want everybody included in society. Making sure that happens, it doesn't have to be at the expense of these other things.
This poor sweet woman. Sounds like she really means all that. Bless her heart. I'm in Tennessee now, so you slowly go native. But that's not what these two want. I don't think that at all. It's very, very sweet, to say, can we just stop fighting, please? Because we keep missing each other's points, which I disagree with. Boy, we hear you loud and clear. I hear this shit loud and clear. Because I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, and I burnt it. But the point is, I get it. And yeah, they're not going to stop fighting, because the fight is the meaning, right? The fight is the fuel. They're agony aunts. Forgive the term. You know, the sort of person who, when things are peaceful, something's wrong. If there's not an enemy to fight, they just don't know what to do with themselves.
Now, like as I said earlier, if there are trans women and women's spaces, like so the women's space, but it's like the trans women friendly, I have no problem with that. That's totally fine. If there's also spaces though that are female only, it's just, I think
We just want
in an era
something
where
for ourselves.
There's going to be different kinds of spaces. They're going to have different sort of, you know.
She's saying it again.
This is female only. This is male only. This is trans only. This is women and trans women. This is men and.
She's literally just saying the same thing over again.
Sorry to cut in. I think
almost verbatim.
When we're talking about spaces very abstractly in general like this, I think it maybe hides some of the issue. So when we're talking about we want to balance rights or something, and it's getting very toxic. I mean, today I live my life like the same as all of my cis women friends, and I go to the women's toilets and the women's changing rooms and stuff, and I've done that for years. And I know trans women who came out before I was born, and so they've done it for 30 years. And we're kind of in a situation where people are coming along and saying, that life that you live, but maybe we're just, I know some gender critical people might be like, toilets, bathrooms, don't care. I'm just talking about prisons and shelters. And if they're the spaces we're talking about,
it's wibbly wobbly shit right there, right? Because spaces that have been separated by sex should remain so, period. The end.
A discussion where there are a lot of gender
no
critical people who are like, I want to be able. Sorry, I'll just finish quickly. There are lots of gender critical people who are like, sorry. I want to make toilets cis women only. I want to make changing rooms cis women, and that would turn my life upside down.
Oh, boo-hoo. Mind you, not a single thought given to, any of the women or little girls in these bathrooms who are not set pieces for this performance of yours. You have no right to do that, you entitled son of a... I'm sorry, I'm getting angry. The point remains. I don't... Why are we expected to care about whether your life would be turned upside down if you had to go into the other bathroom? When you have apparently been going around not giving a fuck about women's consent for years now.
If my work was...
You don't respect that boundary, we need to reestablish it.
So,
no.
And even if they could, then, for what purpose? So I think when we're talking about spaces, it'd be good...
All right, first of all, I could go on all night about for what purpose, and I have already detailed that at some length. But second of all, none of your fucking business. You don't need to know that. You don't get to know that. Okay? If your friend says goodnight and goes in their house and locks the door, you don't get to just follow them in and demand a reason why. They're in their house with the door locked. Line drawn. End of conversation. It kind of is rude, maybe, but
on which ones?
Personal
I think
fucking
if we
boundaries.
created a world where any business was able to, we're a pub and we have cis women only toilets or something, then that means that I have to, every single place I go, have to find out whether I'm going to be treated the way I've been treated the last,
All right, and how would they enforce that? How would they enforce that? You would have to do genital checks or whatever fantastical, perverted nonsense that they like to come out with, right? The thing is that, you just shouldn't be able to do this to yourself. Boom. Yeah, you should not be able to just like you can't change your name in this country anyway. You're not allowed to change your name if you are doing so to escape like from a debt or because you've been convicted of a crime or something. You can't go change your name to hide your identity. Right? That's illegal. And the government won't let you do that. Otherwise, you go pay $100 fee and you can change your name to whatever the fuck. Like literally. Apparently. But like not for nefarious purposes. Okay? Maybe plastic surgery should be similar.
6 years of my life every single day? Or is this going to be a place where I have to go somewhere else away from all of my other friends, to use the toilet and be separated out from everyone, and I'm going to have to like out myself to people and like legally required to go to a separate place? And so it does feel, and maybe you don't see it this way, but it does feel like this like, separate water fountains thing. It's like, why? So
okay. This is always fun. When non-Americans try to use American political history to make a point, because, we don't understand half of it, and y'all really, a lot of the time, don't seem to. And the giant flaw with this fucking metaphor is that trans women are no kind of women at all. They're men. Black people are people. You see the problem there?
When we're talking about shelters and prisons, there's a different argument. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, but the separate water fountain thing is not the right analogy, and the reason is that there was absolutely no reason for that to exist. That's just pure, I would call it evil. You know what I mean?
There's no reason to get me out the toilets, though.
Absolutely.
Yes. Because, like, you can be both black and white, right? You can be a mixed race person. You can't be both male and female at the same time. Because they are two physiologically distinct things, just like you can't be both a bird and a frog at the same time. I mean, not obviously not that even. But, like, if you have a Y chromosome, you're a male, regardless of the way that it expresses itself. And if you don't have a Y chromosome, then you're female. When you get down to the brass tacks, that's what it is. They really, really obviously don't like that one bit.
So spaces, like public spaces, like bathrooms, changing rooms, have been always just male and female because it is, let's say, the most obvious or the simplest way, and there are reasons about it. Like there are men who, like, one of the great arguments I saw a man say about gender neutral toilets, for example, he was like, I don't want to be standing at a urinal when a 5-year-old girl walks in. And I was like, that's a really fair thing. But he's like, that makes me very uncomfortable that she's seeing that I've let, because men.
Almost like these things, have been this way for the benefit of everyone.
Children used to not be.
For so long, for like reasons and things.
Like, oh, I don't want the child around in case I get accused of that falsely. So it's something they're very conscious of. And so they're uncomfortable in that situation. And I understand what you're saying. Okay, so I don't understand what you're saying.
Right, no, we get you.
Go, the solution for you
we hear
is to go into the male bathroom or the male changing room. That's not fair on you. That's not right. That's why I'm like, we're in an era now where
but they won't accept just spaces for themselves.
People are out there in different identities. People are living their lives differently,
which is all we want.
How they were 100 years ago. So we need to find new solutions. But those solutions cannot be at the expense of female spaces, because
when we're talking about toilets,
we do want female space.
When we're talking about
way
toilets,
to hold that line, sister, but you're equivocating way too much.
Trans women have been using like the women's toilets in the UK.
Don't quibble with them.
Sure, the law is in Australia, but like in the UK, trans women have been using the toilet like for 100 years. However long there's been trans women in society, that's where they've been.
Oh, this is getting long. Thank you so much for staying with me so far. Like the video if you're having a good time bitching with me at these two. And subscribe to the channel to let the algorithm know that you want more. And maybe share it somewhere. That'd be epic. Because somebody needs to speak clearly to people like this. Which this poor lady is having difficulty doing.
going, certainly for my entire lifetime.
Oh, right. And they have
and
established
so
this,
it does feel like
they've tried to build this false history. They're in the process, I think, of building this false history of trans people back through time, you know, and I've seen people on Twitter complaining, actually, that, gosh, there's no mention of trans people in this novel or that novel. And it's like, you're right, Dickens doesn't mention trans people. How funny that, because they didn't exist. It wasn't a thing. You know, women lived as men, you know, either with the implicit permission of people around her who understood, or as a lie, so they could, you know, go to medical school and enlist in the military and stuff that women do all the time now with no problem whatsoever. But they were not men. They didn't think they were men. They knew they were women, which is why they had to pretend.
Like, I know you're saying that there was absolutely no reason at all for requiring someone to use a different water fountain. That's true. There was no reason. It was total bullshit. But when we're talking about toilets, there is no reason for me to have to go to a separate toilet.
Because you're a male.
What is the reason there?
You
is
use
it just
the men's room. She just gave
I'm
you
not
a reason.
Saying you personally,
she's
but
given you
the
several
would be
reasons.
That some gender critical people are uncomfortable with the idea that I might be in the toilet with them. Because I think that's just irrational.
No. Because it's not about you, asshole. Everything is not, you know, your personal life is not a microcosm of the entire existence of the world. And it's not the idea that you might be in the bathroom. It's that the idea that males can go in there. When, until very recently, that was just not permitted. And it was actually just taken for granted because, ooh, women have privacy. What a concept.
We actually have to be really clear here that is there a chance, and statistically, that I have been in a female bathroom in my lifetime with a trans woman and had absolutely no idea? Of course. It's probably happened, right? And it's been totally harmonious.
Not the point.
We've both done our business and lived our life.
We shouldn't have to worry about it.
Where it became a problem was with self-ID. That's where the issue became really dangerous. And this is why I think these self-ID things is actually a detriment to trans people like yourself.
Okay. So, I guess I respect the drawing of the line somewhere. I do. Hold that line. You know, you hold your line. I'm going to hold the one in front of it. A couple rows up, maybe. Because, yeah, self-ID is a problem. The idea that any random bloke can just, you know, declare himself a woman and walk into the ladies' room is sheer madness. It's clearly an invitation for problems. It's beyond common sense. It's a visceral, instinctive knowledge, isn't it? They've only been doing this to us for thousands of years at the very least. You know, we feel it in our bones. A strange penis is probably a weapon. They're the ones that decided that, not us. And look at the little smirk there. On Katy. Lovely. Because you've been getting away with using the ladies' room for so long. And these women think they have boundaries, but you know better.
Because now you have just someone who, if we're going to talk about passing, doesn't pass. There's no respect for female spaces. And it's like, hang on. So with trans,
it doesn't matter whether you pass or not. You have no respect.
And just sort of whether it was spoken or unspoken, that yes, trans women and women will share, trans men and men will share. And it was not an issue. And then self-ID came in and it exploded into this horrible issue.
That is the thing that's pissing people off, yes.
Women are supposed to give up their spaces for people who just say that they are a woman on the inside but have done nothing on the outside to change. And when you're
right, that's completely beside the point, because being a woman is not cosmetic. Being a woman is not a look. Being a woman is not having boobs. And, being a walking fleshlight, for God's sake. What they look like is completely beside the point. They're men. And you cannot buy your way to womanhood. You cannot journey to womanhood. Except from the starting point of being a little girl. Like, that's just... I'm sorry, that path is close to you. Deal with it.
Been in your entire life very protective of yourself and your spaces, if there's not going to be someone who completely presents as a male, and suddenly they're there and they're going, you can't even question why I'm here. It's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're not even...
It's instinctively terrifying.
So for
they don't get it at all.
Self-ID here, I actually think means quite a lot of different things, and I would address that perhaps.
What?
If we maybe could have another call.
Self-ID means a lot of different things.
I'm just going to add here that for sure we can talk about the range of what a trans woman is, and there will be trans women who don't pass, and there's a whole spectrum all the way up to ones who pass in every single situation. However,
right, and trying to distinguish between the levels would be impossible. Way to muddy the waters. Thank you, Katy. Because, so that's why I draw the line where I do. All right? Something like 98+% of human beings on Earth are born male or female. And that is what you are. You are conceived that way. Okay? Because fertile males throw out sperm. We all know that. And some of those little sperm have Y's in them. They're single cells, right? And some of them have X's in them. And depending on which one fertilizes your mama's ova, that's what you are. The end. For the rest of time. Because before that, you didn't exist. Scary, I know. Non-existence. Sorry. A little heavy. But I hope you see my point. You cannot just come along and decide midway through that you don't like the hand that you were dealt, and so you want to start the game over. It's not possible to do that. So you don't have respect for women, you don't have respect for reality. And I suppose it could be argued you don't have respect for yourself, because God knows who he would have been.
You were just arguing that even passing trans women you want to ban from women's spaces.
Yes, because I'm not quibbling with you.
For sure we can have an argument about maybe you only want passing trans women, but you did say as well earlier you want a situation where I am, for example, or trans women who pass much better than me, not big boasting or any, making a claim about my own position, but you do want to ban everyone. So I don't think self-ID is a problem in that situation.
Well, okay, so this is the thing. One of the things is
that's what's pissed people off, though.
I think it's wrong. It's not about banning people. It's about going, okay, we have male and female spaces, and so if you're female, you go into female space. If you're male, you go into the male. Now,
right.
There is...
It's not about banning people. It's not about you. It's not about them. It's about us. And the dude who doesn't want to pee in front of the 5-year-old. It's about something that has worked. Okay? And I think that this is the core of the reason why the non-believers get called conservatives, because we want to preserve the status quo of sex-segregated spaces. That's demonstrably true and pretty much the crux of the whole thing, right? But change is not necessarily progress, is it? It is if it's the change you want, I suppose. On the other hand, there's entire pursuits for entire industries I can't word right now, but like devoted to, there are many people out there who spend a lot of time and money trying to figure out what progress would actually look like. It's a whole field. It's not just what you want. And this dude clearly, desperately wants to continue using the ladies' room.
Understand, I don't think you should have to go into a male space, or any trans woman should have to go into a male space.
They don't want their own space.
Female spaces.
As you said earlier, we are talking.
Ooh. Great fucking timing there. Look at that. Did you catch that?
Pardon?
I do use female spaces today. Is what I mean.
Yeah. So I'm not saying ban, like, because I'm saying, like, as you said earlier, we're talking about like the 1% of the population here, and so it's like, why can't we create, like, say, third spaces, and that these are compulsory, that businesses, corporations in public, that they have to have these other spaces that are unisex, that so
mandated by law.
Like,
but for what? Like with toilet? Yeah. What?
I want to. Can I just cut in really quickly? So I appreciate Sal. I feel like you have come here in like super good faith, and I'm actually enjoying this conversation. I will say though, we do have 2 more callers still on the line, and we are kind of running a tight ship. As much as I would love to hear this conversation go on, I do feel like it kind of took a turn at the whole self-ID thing. So maybe it's best if we conclude this call today, and then have you call back and kind of pick up from where we left off.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, hon, we're just going to interrupt you saying that important thing that we have no answer for, because we want to hear from other people who probably agree with us. Right. So, yeah. Infuriating stuff, no? Thank you so much for staying with me through it. Like I say, we have to talk plainly with these people. We have to draw a firm, simple line. We all understand these lines because they're represented in the material and reality all around us. Those, like those 2, just want to refuse to recognize them and want the rest of us to play along. We have to refuse to do that. Because you can't enshrine fantasies in law and have it not end badly. I strongly feel that. Look anywhere at medieval history in Europe, and I think it demonstrates that many times over. We don't want to go there, right? We're better than they were, obviously. We have electricity, right? So, yeah. Men are not women. The end. No, you can't come in. And you don't get to know why. Unless I'm in a good mood. That poor lady was so conciliatory. She just was begging them to have some understanding. And it's sad. Not pathetic sad. It makes me genuinely sad. Because that's how women are taught to behave our entire lives, obsequious. Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Please, may I have another? Right? And they just talked her around in circles, didn't they? She said the same thing over and over again, and they just talked her round and round and round. Because they're never going to accept it. And, it's like iron fist in the velvet glove with those 2, because they're smiling and they're nodding when they're not, staring vacantly off into space or being fidgety because they really just want to speak and tell her why she's wrong. I feel like if they were really women, they would understand, right? They would know these things viscerally like we do. But no, they don't. It's the same kind of circular argument you have with men a lot of times. At least I feel. Right? You know, you realize that you're having the argument because you're perceiving the situation completely differently. Excuse me. And if that doesn't just tell you the whole story, they don't get it. They don't. They never will. Even if they tried, they probably wouldn't. And they are willfully obscuring it here in real time. So, yeah. This just really got my dander up today, and I wanted to sit and pick it apart with you guys. You guys. Everybody. I don't know. My dear viewers. Almost 200 of you. This is fun. So thank you so much for sticking with me through this. And like the video. Subscribe to the channel. To let the algorithm know that you like the video, because it doesn't necessarily pay attention, as we all know. And like, share it somewhere if you think somebody else find this kind of stuff interesting. That would be awesome. I'm going to go find some more stuff to bitch about.